Adilama and welcome to another edition of ITV Gold Originals, our weekly feature presenting you stories, opinions and dialogues on South Asian Americans in America, their life, cultural expressions and a lot more. On ITV Gold Originals tonight, we bring you a detailed report on the current ongoing US government shutdown. The longest shutdown in US history, currently affecting a quarter of US government, has now reached its 25th day today. 800,000 federal employees have been furloughed and or are currently paying and working without having their pay for the last week. The White House and congressional Democrats remain divided over Republican President Donald Trump's demand for more money for the border wall. We bring to you tonight perspectives from federal employees, immigration attorneys, community leaders, local officials and representatives. Let's take a look at the sentiments of our community on the current U.S. government shutdown. So just, starting the interview, please give us an insight into what has exactly happened in the department and the impact of the shutdown on the 800,000 workers that we're talking about.
Sure. So for people who don't know, the government was shut down on December 22nd. Originally, the Senate had passed a measure to have a continuing resolution that would have went until February 8th so they can resolve their issues during that time frame. However, the president decided to shut down the government, which is going to be the third time in 2018 alone that the government has been shut down. But what that means is that federal employees cannot go back to work. That currently affects 800,000 federal workers. And something that some people may not know is that about 420,000 of those federal workers still have to go to work but are not getting paid. The other 380,000 employees are just not allowed to go to work, including myself. And federal employees believe in the mission of what they're doing. They want to go to work, and the shutdown is really having some real impact on these people. These are real people with real jobs and real responsibilities, such as paying their mortgage, their rent, trying to put food on the table for their families. And not only is it federal workers that are not being affected, but it also affects people outside of the federal government, such as janitorial staff, cafeteria staff, any other support staff that isn't considered a federal worker. Particularly in the DC area, there's a lot of restaurants and other businesses that rely on federal workers to provide their business. Those are people that are not going to get any type of back pay, or they're just losing out on business and basically not having a way to make that up.
And we have you talking to us on a weekend that many, on national media are talking about how the 800,000 workers, the federal employees, will not get their paycheck this weekend. And that's a huge amount of stress. You work with so many people that are working in the department. You yourself have been impacted. What are the conversations that are happening amongst the people, the federal employees themselves? And if you could share with us or with the audience of ITV Gold what it feels like to go through this right now, I'd really appreciate.
Yeah, so for us, we have a tight-knit community of federal workers. So we've been in contact with each other, and also with the help of our union, which is the American Federation for Government Employees, which has helped provide us with a lot of advocacy as well as advice of what to do during these times. So a lot of federal workers are going on unemployment benefits just to have some kind of income come in. Some of them are working with their banks with a promise that they'll eventually get back pay and able to pay back these essentially short-term loans.
Right.
But a lot of it is just that support, because a lot of these people are going through really tough times. They rely on this income just to have their household run, pay that mortgage, pay that rent, get food. But we're working together. I know a group of my fellow employees went down to a march in Philadelphia yesterday to kind of show their support, show that they believe that the shutdown needs to end. If people want to have discussions about the budget, pass a continuing resolution, and do that not while affecting federal workers and their families.
When we are talking about this, I would like to take this part of the interview to sort of get your personal view into exactly what should be the corrective measures right now. This shutdown is now on its 20th day. Yesterday, even on my news segment, I was talking about how now we're on the 19th day, and perhaps there were some conversations happening which didn't lead anywhere. What could be done in order to, one, stop this right now, get everybody working, and also how do you think this will impact once you are back at work after so many days?
So I think the first thing is that the Senate passed a funding measure that would have had a continuing resolution go until February 8th. That was introduced by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, approved by both Republicans and Democrats. I think that's one step that's already out there that can be taken so that this can be negotiated and they can work out their differences, not while affecting federal workers. And also right now it seems to be that a lot of people are focusing on the $5.6 billion in regards to the wall. But when you look back on the last time we had a long-term federal shutdown in 2013, that lasted, I think, was about 16 days. And the estimated effect to American taxpayers was close to $24 billion just from being shut down.
Wow.
So at this point, I think that we're affecting so many different people. Back in 2013, that shutdown stopped NIH clinical trials so that cancer patients couldn't go into these trials. Hundreds of students who wanted to go into the Head Start program were delayed for 9 days, and that's a program that's helped low-income families and children eventually reach higher graduation rates. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, couldn't do thousands of site visits, which enforce our environmental laws, including OSHA, which ensures workplace safety, couldn't do thousands of their inspections, making sure that workplaces are safe for Americans.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your U.S. Immigration Attorney Dave Banad Vishwanath with the Banad Law Offices. I want to talk to you a little bit about the government shutdown, okay? Everybody knows that we've just reached or finished our third week with the U.S. government shutdown. This is a partial government shutdown. We have about 800,000 federal workers that are out of work, and it really has hit several factors and different levels of the U.S. government. You know, Social Security Office, Medicare, Medicaid have all been covered already. Many aspects of the U.S. Justice Department has already been covered. But there are other areas like Department of Homeland Security that have been affected, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement, including the immigration courts in the Department of Justice, and removal proceedings. Right now, we're dealing with only removal cases that are in detention, okay? So all other removal deportation cases have been suspended. If anybody has hearings that are up right now, they're most likely going to be canceled and rescheduled. Also, we're dealing with the issue of where are the funds going, what's going on. President Trump has had several meetings with Democratic leadership. The Republican Party has basically said that the Democratic Party needs to get on some sort of plane with the president in order to make a decision. And if the Democrats can come to terms with the president, then they can talk about a bipartisan bill. Because the Senate, controlled by Republicans, has already said that they will not move a bill forward if the president won't sign it. Now, the last meeting that President Trump had with Senator Chuck Schumer, which is the minority leader, as well as the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, President Trump walked out on the meeting. He basically said it was a waste of time. He asked Nancy Pelosi one question: will you give me a wall? She said no. He said thank you, got up and left. So that's where we stand. There's really no clear line in sight. I think that folks are in for the long haul. Hopefully we will see some movement as pressure mounts by society, by people at home. But until then, we are going to see a few areas of U.S. government in shutdown. And right now, we're crossing the longest government shutdown in over a decade. You know, the one with President Obama in 2013 was a total of 13 days, but now we're crossed well into our third week. So it's a terrible time, and that's something to think about. People are asking us about the U.S. immigration, how it's affected by the government shutdown, particularly with USCIS. Well, I'm here to say that as a general proposition, USCIS is self-funded. That means that they are not intuitively affected by the government shutdown. However, there are aspects of immigration that are, okay? That includes E-Verify, which is the platform for employers to find out if their employees are actually legal and able to work in the United States. The Conrad J-1 waiver program for medical professionals that are working in underprivileged areas. The EB-5 regional centers, that's for investors, as well as for non-priest religious workers. So R1 workers that are not priests. All of those four areas are no longer being worked on during this government shutdown. In addition to that, people in removal proceedings are also affected by the government shutdown as long as it's non-detained cases. Now let's talk a little bit about what does that mean for people that have their citizenship, or what about people that have permanent resident applications. Really, it just means that there might be either more workers to work on those cases because they don't have to deal with other things, or it could mean a little bit of disarray because workers are disgruntled, okay? But as a general proposition, ladies and gentlemen, the already long wait periods that we've seen in USCIS will just continue. It should be status quo for most of you. Let's talk a little bit about the H-4 visas, okay? These are dependents of the H-1. You know, for the last few years now, people who are an H-4 visa, if their H-1 primary beneficiary was also a beneficiary of a permanent residence application, then the spouse of that worker could get work authorization under an H-4. So an employment authorization document under the H-4. Well, now the administration has moved to terminate the H-4 EAD, okay? So that's something that we're going to be seeing ending very, very soon. And the likelihood is we won't see it back until there's a major shift in immigration law or a change in administrative policy.
Joe Coyle, Edison Township Councilman and Edison Chamber of Commerce President. What it means to have a federal shutdown, it's absolutely absurd. The effect that's going to happen not only to those people without a paycheck, and just to look back at the Christmas and the holidays have just passed, most people are spending over 130% of their money and are relying on this paycheck. So life goes by on consistency. And when you're waiting for your paycheck and you're overspent, it just puts you into a bigger dive. Nonetheless, some of these federal institutions that we need, that are necessary for the heartbeat of America to protect us, our military. How could we live without our military? This is insane to not have our federal military guys working, have the Food and Drug Administration alone. The Food and Drug Administration alone needs to inspect over 160 domestic manufacturing food facilities, with having over 128,000 people who wind up in hospitals with foodborne illnesses and 3,000 killed. And we're not going to have the FDA in work? Can't happen. So we need to do a lot. We need to send a message to Congress, a message to our president, how these necessities of daily life have to continue to happen. And that this time of the year is no time to shut down the federal government and affect 800,000 people and the needs of our military and the FDA.
Hi, I'm Councilman Sam Joshi. I'm representing Edison, New Jersey. I'm one of the 7 council members. I was just asked what are my thoughts on the government shutdown. I think that it's pretty ridiculous that government is being shut down right now by the president. I don't appreciate the way that he negotiates. I don't think it's a healthy way for government. I don't think it's a proper policy-making process. I think that he's made it clear that he just wants the wall to be built, and it's clear that Mexico is not paying for the wall, so there's no reason for government to be shut down right now. I think that if you want to do things properly, the way to go about them is to do them in piecemeal, and the reality is that he's probably not going to get what he wants, and I think that the government should reopen and he should pass the bills.
Hi, my name is Hemant Bhatt, and I am the founder and chairman of South Asian Republican Coalition. We have started an institution in December 29th. And that's a good question, why the government is shut down and what is the necessity for wall. The important thing is government is partially shut down, and there is no dispute, or there is no two opinions about that the Americans and America's safety and security has to be on the top of everybody's mind. and there are statistics available where there are like one of the two studies appeared in the newspaper today, Yale and Yale and the meat. These two these two studies have said that in America there are 22.1 million illegal immigrants. And if this number is really correct, it's really surprising that in spite of all the immigration laws and in spite of all the system in place, why this many people have entered our country. Number one. Number two is all over the world, any country you go and there are walls and there are barriers in order to make sure that country is protected properly and there is no illegal infiltration. Now only this is really surprising that in America do not have the southern wall and these people are able to come into this country. So I am very firmly believing that the America should be protected, Americans should be protected, and we have to make sure that the criminals or the drug or the human trafficking should be stopped. And let us make this country great. Let us continue to be safe, proud, and let us continue to make sure that we do the best thing what is required to be done for the safety and security of this country. Thank you.
सबसे पहले इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि इतने साल से मैक्सिकन बॉर्डर खुला हुआ है और लोग आते हैं और जाते हैं. अभी इमीडिएटली इतने सालों के बाद ऐसा क्या हो गया कि दैट हैज़ बिकम एन इमरजेंसी, दैट यू नीड ए वॉल राइट नाउ. फर्स्ट यू हैव टू डिटरमिन whether we really need a wall or we have other aspects to do it. How can we do it? Why do we need a wall? Or let's say if you need a wall and you convince people you need a wall, then you need 5.7 billion to build a wall to stop some illegal immigrants. That's a lot of money. And then if Democrats don't approve it and Republicans approve it, there's a big difference. Why is there so much difference in opinion? Why don't some Republicans come? Oh, some is right, some are wrong. They don't come. It's a bipartisan basis. And that is why the Trump says, if I am not given $5.7 billion to construct the wall, I will partly shut down the government. Which means some of the offices, some of the parks, some of the main areas will be closed and their employees will not be paid. And if their employees will not get paid, they cannot meet their expenses, they cannot pay their mortgages, they cannot pay their car loans, they cannot do anything. It's a big thing that you have done it, that you are not paying people, which is wrong, which I think is wrong. Why don't they all sit together, and they're sitting together again, stop this shutdown business now and talk and talk and talk and open the government. Let the government run the business. Every day there is a loss of $5 billion or $1 billion, whatever it is. Why do we have to go through this? Why do the employees have to go through this? Why do they have not money to cook the food in their houses? Why do we have to do it? Because you don't have a wall? Because you want $5.7 billion for wall? Or maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Let's all educated people talk about it. Let educated people talk about it. What is best for the country? That's what you should do it. And not what Democrats want, not what Republicans want. That is the important thing to do it. Okay.